something that is not my face.
There we go.
This is probably better, to be honest, if we're gonna be real here. Brett's hand looks great. He's just missing something to sneak into play, but the show and tell can even be like a another Lotus Petal to like put the sneak attack into play. So his hand is actually fairly strong, and he has the top to do some digging, but he just needs like an Emrakul or a Grizzlebrand, and he should be in good shape. And Julian here is in much worse shape than that. He's only got a couple of elves. He doesn't really have a way to cantrip through his deck, just a few lands. The Gaia's Cradle can do work, but it's not that likely. Elvish Visionary's not a bad draw though. Not a bad draw at all.
You
I
know,
just wonder if he's going to have enough time.
Julian wasn't looking forward to this matchup. Um, of all of the things that he's paired against once the archetypes were released, he said this is probably going to be his worst matchup.
Sure, sure. And a lot of that depends on Julian's sideboard. I'm sure he has some amount of discard that could come into play in games 2 and 3.
I believe 4 Thoughtseize, 2 Cabal Therapy.
Yeah, so Julian, one of the better elves players I've ever played against. Ooh, Glimpse of Nature. And Brett has no way of stopping the glimpse either.
Yeah, Brett does have a disruption package of 3 Spell Pierce, 4 Force main deck. Um, it doesn't look like that's going to matter too much, though, as he found a Gristlebrand. So, any other red source or blue source at this point, and I think Brett's going to take game 1 pretty easily.
Your the Skype has actually frozen for me, so I can't actually see the board state develop.
Any better?
Oh. I'm just watching with a 30-second delay on the actual stream because the actual Skype share is frozen. Oh, there we go. That might work.
So unfortunately, there's a lot of moving parts here.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. And this is our first run. There's always going to be some cogs that don't spin as efficiently as others.
Well, here comes a sneak attack. Gonna have
Yes.
a hasty Gristlebrand. Probably try and draw for Lotus Petal Emrakul and the game on the spot.
Yeah, and he can draw 14 towards it, so it seems pretty likely that that's just the case. And even if he bricks, it's not like Julian is representing lethal, so he can just attack with the Grizzlebrand, go back up to 9 life, and win the game on the next turn as well. If I'm Julian, I probably just put the land into play. Yeah, that's what he does. Okay.
Yeah, that's the Glimpse drawing an extra card off Visionary. If there's another turn. Well, he found the
There's
Emrakul.
Emrakul.
I mean, if he really wants to, he also has a 15th draw of spinning the top. Or not, well, not spinning, but drawing
When
with top.
he decides not to go down to 1 with the Grizzlebrand, which I think would have actually been fairly safe here, looking for Lotus Petal, because you still get to attack with the Grizzlebrand and go back up to 8, and Julian only has 3 damage in play.
Yeah. Whereas if Julian had, like, if his hand were Craterhoof Behemoth, like, then he is actually representing lethal. I mean,
Well, Craterhoof wins through most things, right?
but not that Force of Will. Yeah, if his land for turn were a Cavern, I was trying to count it out, he doesn't have quite enough. Like, he has enough to land an uncounterable Craterhoof, but not enough to have the kill. Even untapping stuff with Wirewood. Because he can only untap one thing, only having one elf to return.
So, amusingly, it looks like my Skype video is frozen now. Like the rest of the video is okay. Now it's up. You got it. You got it.
Yeah. Oh, I know how to fix everything. I just need to know when it breaks.
Shaman of the pack, not good enough. Pretty good, but not good enough. Yeah, I think Julian needed just one more turn here, right? Because he could have bounce Shaman with Symbiote.
Mm-hmm.
And then Birchlore Rangers would actually give him the third source of black, so he could actually play it 3 times if all of his mana was untapped. So close, but yet so far.
It's also weird because I don't know which display to watch because I have the game up on all 3.
Never enough monitors.
No, actually I had to get a 3rd monitor for this. Which means I had to upgrade my video card, which means I had to upgrade my power source. since I was doing all that, why stop there?
Yeah. I've been actually thinking about getting a 3rd monitor for streaming. It's just useful. Julian's still trying to figure out how to win this game.
Yeah, it's...
He realizes that the Shaman's not going to be good enough. So he fires off Visionary first. Yeah. And he's got 6 permanents to sacrifice to Emrakul, but he does not have 15 life, so...
He got close, though.
He got so close. That's like 1 more casting of Shaman, right?
Yep.
No, it would be 2 more, but still.
Oh yeah, because Wirewood isn't quite an elf.
Not without a mirror entity in play.
Okay. So looks like Brett took game 1. And I only get to see how they sideboard. Oh shit, that's Julian's screen twice.
I like this overlay.
Yep.
Oh, it's Julian twice. Double the Julian. More Julian than you can handle. Are those sudden shocks? That's interesting. Is sudden shock a normal Sneak and Show sideboard card these days?
I have not seen it in Sneak and Show, but Brett's running 2. It's certainly going to be annoying for Julian.
The Pyroclasms are much more common and probably much more annoying. I kind of like Flusterstorm over Spell Pierce in this matchup. Like, it's never going to be worse than Spell Pierce, right?
I mean, for like Garruk Relentless, if that comes in, but otherwise, no.
Probably not coming in. Probably not coming in. And then he's bringing in Grafdigger's Cages, of course, because it shuts off Green Sun Zenith. And he doesn't know that Julian is not playing Natural Order because we haven't seen deck lists yet.
Yeah, I mean,
we just know archetypes.
He might suspect it because Julian's been running Chaos Elves for a couple months now and doing fairly well with it. But no, there is a chance that he's still running Natural Order, and that is a card Cage shuts off. It also shuts off fetching for Dryad Arbor.
Sure. Which is a little bit more niche, right?
Well, we saw it last game.
Well, the Flusterstorm does come in. We didn't see any of Julian's sideboarding, because we've got like one on top of the other. Hopefully Julian didn't sideboard anything too interesting.
Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't. I had to close your display.
Oh, okay. So everyone else did?
Everyone else did, yeah.
Okay, the important people.
Yep.
Sweet overlay, though. So what all did you see what Julian boarded in?
No, I was too busy fixing stuff.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So
I'd
2
imagine
therapies and other nonsense?
I'd imagine 4 Thoughtseize, 2 therapy. I think he's running a choke.
Okay. I'm not sure how good choke is in this matchup, but maybe it's good. Brett opens with 5 lands, sneak attack, Emrakul, the most bare bones combo that combo can be. Okay, Julian did bring in surgical.
Yeah, he has 2 surgicals.
which can be really good. And he's got a needle for a sneak attack.
Yeah.
Brett naturally mulligans the 5-land sneak attack Emrakul, but he's got a show and tell Grizzlebrand, some cantrips, and a Grafdigger's Cage.
Surgical extraction definitely very good. If he can therapy away or thought seize away a show and tell, and then
A combo piece, yeah. That could even be Grizzlebrand or Emrakul too. Just removing half the threats from the deck can be really good. Um, so historically, these sorts of hands tend to actually favor the Elves player when both players have multiple pieces of disruption, because the Elves player, when both players are running said disruption into each other, the Elves player is the one that's like attacking with 1/1s and stuff.
mm-hmm.
So if you do get into the Gimp fight scenario, I think that the Elves player is favored. But a lot of that's going to depend on whether or not Julian can find a black source in time to get either the show and tell or the Grizzlebrand out of Brett's hand before he combos off.
Well, Julian often says Elvish Visionary is like a demonic tutor attached to a 1/1 body, and it found him his black source.
Nice, nice. I think he's also called it the Green Grizzlebrand before, hasn't he? I think I've heard that one. And he's not wrong. Visionary is so good. It is just actually incredible in that deck. Oh, one interesting thing about the Grafdigger's Cage that I missed at first glance is that if he whiffs with the Cabal Therapy, he doesn't get a flashback. That cage is stopping that.
The actual use of cage. Cards like Grafdigger's Cage and Containment Priest always fill me with a little bit of joy, because to a not competitive player, they read this card and think, like, this doesn't do anything.
So hateful. I think if you are Julian, you probably name Show and Tell here, though, just because it's the most efficient card, but it's going to get hid. Oh, one thing that's kind of interesting about the Brainstorm hiding is that Julian has Surgical Extraction, so if he decides to extract Brainstorms, then that will actually shuffle Brett's deck.
Mm-hmm.
He will be able to redraw one of them. If he puts the Show and Tell on the very top of his library, he'll be able to redraw in response to the Surgical Shuffle, to get the Show and Tell back. So if he keeps like specifically Emrakul and Grizzlebrand in his hand, so that Therapy can't shut him off of something to cheat into play with Show and Tell, he could play around the Surgical pretty nicely.
Yeah. So one of the things, if this were like a turn 1 therapy, often, well,
and he's just surgicaling now. That makes more sense, because if he like wants to tap the top to redraw the Show and Tell, then he's going to get a chance to hit the Show and Tell with the Cabal Therapy.
Mm-hmm. And regardless, it would give him a little more information. Plus, then Brett doesn't have a top.
Yeah. Excellent play by Julian there. And Brett just lets it resolve.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh no.
One of the plays with Elves, or any Cabal Therapy deck, if it actually has the functionality to flash it back, like a Grixis Pyromancer, is if you're playing it turn 1, oftentimes you'll name Brainstorm so that you're quote-unquote guaranteed to hit with a flashback.
Yep. Yeah, I've run into that a lot with Nick Fit. Yeah, the sequencing on that Surgical Extraction was impeccable.
Hits the Grizzlebrand.
Oh, and Needle can name top now if he really wants to. It's a shame to not name Sneak Attack with Needle, because then you're shutting off like half of your opponent's deck.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you know that your opponent just has cantrip land and a top in play, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, especially since that land is a fetch, it gives them an extra shuffle. Plus, it's taking care of a card right now. If Brett never draws a Sneak Attack, then, hitting Needle it.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Brett leading off with the Preordain. I'd almost want to fetch first before I Preordained, but I can kind of understand this. He did, in fact, find a Ponder, which can better make use of the fetch, so...
Yep, Flusterstorm, Ponder, Sudden Shock are the cards revealed to Ponder. I don't think... well, he might keep the Ponder, because he has a fetch land to play it. So he gets that extra shuffle anyways. It lets him see 3 new cards.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think the Sudden Shock's quite worth it when you're just facing down a couple of 1/1s. Oh, he kept the Flusterstorm. Maybe he's worried about Natural Order.
I mean, keeping Flusterstorm against an Elves player with a Cradle out doesn't seem the best.
I agree. I agree.
It loses. Ooh, he drew the Sudden Shock as well.
I
Well,
think the only reason to keep the Flusterstorm is if you're worried about natural order specifically, because even with Cradle in play, it's something that you can counter.
yeah. Now something to note: Sudden Shock has Split Second, but Heritage Druid is a mana ability, I believe. So if he Sudden Shocks a Heritage Druid and Julian has 3 Elves out, he can still produce green, green, green,
That's correct.
which may be relevant here if Brett waits too long.
He could just respond to the Nettle Sentinel by sudden shocking the Druid.
Or he might Sudden Shock the Visionary if he's afraid of Julian gaining too much value, bouncing it with a Wirewood Symbiote.
One line that was available to Brett in response to the original Glimpse was sudden shocking Heritage Druid and then Flusterstorming the Glimpse to mitigate Julian's ability to draw cards, but this probably makes more sense. If the only card that he's really worried about is Natural Order,
Well,
and that seems
he has a Cage in play too. He can't be too worried about it.
Yeah, I don't know what. I guess I just don't understand why he kept the Flusterstorm then. If you're not going to hit a large Green Sun Zenith or a Natural Order anyway. Maybe Brett also missed that.
Yeah, I mean, if Julian had more cards in hand, I could see being afraid of, Natural Reclamation Sage or Abrupt Decay. Although Julian bringing in Abrupt Decay here is almost certainly wrong.
Right. It's just too narrow. Symbiote's a great draw here.
Yeah, and this is what I'm saying, gaining recurring value with Elvish Visionary. This is one of the best ways Elves can grind out a game, is just by bouncing and replaying Visionary.
The Green Grizzlebrand, man. The Green Grizzlebrand.
So Brett, with the Sudden Shock in hand, elects not to kill the Elvish Visionary in response. And the second Surgical shows its head. Has a, probably not targeting the Sudden Shock, but there is a Tasty Gristlebrand or Brainstorm as targets.
This game has been pretty sweet overall.
A couple people in the,
Some actual interaction.
Couple people in the chat saying it's not mediocre enough. I do what I can.
You should refresh my Skype screen again, though.
Yep, I believe I did.
Okay, it's still frozen for me.
Oh, the share screen?
Yeah. That just updated it. Oh, here we go. Thank you. And now I'm back to be... Okay, cool. Julian takes it down. Going to game 3.
Now you'll actually get to see them sideboard.
Yeah! Oh, I'm so excited.
So the choke did not come in. Green Sun Zenith did come out.
Oh, that's interesting. So he kind of anticipated Grafdigger's Cages and wanted to mitigate the effectiveness of that. He also took out Packmaster because that's just kind of a grindier card. It's a middling Green Sun Zenith target that's just very powerful against Tarmogoyf decks, and is an actual Julian 23 bit of technology. He's the first person that ever played that card against me, and it's seen some other top 8s as well, besides in his decks. The Wolves have Death Touch, so it's just really strong against opposing large creatures, and it gives you a sink for Gaia's Cradle. Again, not very good in this matchup, but excellent card overall. Strangely excellent.
The Wolves only have Death Touch while Ren's Packmaster is around.
Sure.
But yeah, it's very relevant against like the new Stompy decks, all of the Eldrazi decks that have been taking over Legacy.
Oh yeah, I would imagine that card would just crush Eldrazi if you can keep it in play for a turn or two. They don't really have many answers to it unless they're playing Dismember, right?
Yep. And then even then, Julian has ways to protect it.
Bounce it in response.
Mostly.
Yeah, that sounds savage.
Plus, if he champions an Elvish Visionary, he gets it back and draws a card.
Oh man, the value. Such value. I can't wait to see these game 3 hands.
I guess I should have updated this.
Okay. I think Brett's got an unexciting but keepable hand thanks to the Ponder. And Julian, yeah, his opener didn't have an actual mana source, so he couldn't keep it. And he once again goes down to 5. His 5 doesn't have any disruption, so it's a little bit questionable. He really needs to... he's relying on either drawing into a Cabal Therapy or something off of his first few draw steps, or on Brett stumbling. And if those... Hey, there's a Thoughtseize. How about that?
Well, there you go.
How about that?
Brett's probably going to sacrifice the Petal to Spell Pierce it. I can't imagine any other reason to keep Spell Pierce up.
Yeah, I like that. Protect the Grizzlebrand in your hand.
Yeah, for a
The Thoughtseize is still really good though, right? Like that's like a force of will. I mean, it's a 2-for-1.
Yeah. At the very least, maybe it'll slow Brett down a turn. As for Julian keeping a 5 with no disruption, like I agree. Once you go down, well, unless his 5 was like 4 lands or no lands, going to 4 just seems worse.
You could hit, I don't know, you could hit something like land double Thoughtseize, Elvish Visionary, but you're probably right. Well, let's put it this way, Julian's probably right. That man knows elves.
Unfortunately, can't quite glimpse with this makeup. Cradle, no creatures, doesn't exactly cast anything.
True.
I always used to joke, what if they added the basic land types to the Urza's lands? Tolarian Academy, Legendary Island.
Oh, let them be fetchable? Yeah, why not? Why
Well,
not?
well, it would also let Cradle tap for green with no creatures out.
Okay, yeah. And you'd be able to untap it with things that untap forests.
Yeah. And then, yeah, fetchable.
Surgical's interesting. So on Julian's last turn, he had the ability to run out another 1-drop, but he chose not to potentially set up a Glimpse of Nature turn here.
Oop, hiding this back. Didn't think the graveyard would be relevant in this matchup, but Surgical Extraction kind of makes it so. I can see the graveyard being a little full.
Yeah, for sure. So imagine one of those sneak attacks getting into the graveyard somehow. And the Surgical would be pretty backbreaking.
Yeah, now unfortunately Julian... Oh, no, I'm sorry, I think he's resolving a Glimpse. For some reason I thought that was a Therapy on the stack, and I'm like, well, Julian doesn't know any of the cards in Brett's hand, but nope, just a Glimpse.
So depending on how this turn plays out, Brett might have the opportunity to either Pyroclasm Julian's board or play a sneak attack with no mana up and pass the turn. It'll be pretty interesting to see which line he goes for.
Yeah, I mean...
Because Julian's developing a relevant board here.
Yeah, Brett chose a very conservative line earlier, so I would imagine he Pyroclasms, especially since he has top plus leave spin top up.
Sure, yeah, that's correct.
To be mana efficient. Pendelhaven, one of Julian's favorite cards for the grind.
It looks like Julian has run out of juice here. Which is probably bad news bears. I think he needed to find a piece of disruption somewhere in those draw steps.
Yep, here comes that Pyroclasm.
Julian gets to save a creature because Symbiote is not a fair card. Just not a fair Magic card.
Really excels in like the Stoneblade matchup. Block your Batter Skull, return the blocking creature.
Yep. And that can actually shut off Umezawa's Jit as well.
Mm-hmm.
Jitterino. Glimpse to draw one sad card.
And this one's just for Danny in the chat. Umezawa's Jeter.
Jeter. I like Jeter. Jeter's good.
So glimpses into another Deathrite Shaman and then just mono lands. It's unfortunate. I don't think this match is looking well for him. Says Captain Obvious.
Yeah. And there's a Lotus Petal on top of Brett's library, so he's actually going to be able to go sneak attack, activate here. And I think I would just tap top to draw the Emrakul and just annihilate. Just annihilate for 6. No reason not to. And then kill him with the Grizzlebrand next turn. Yeah, it looks like that's what's happening.
Well, the graveyard wasn't relevant. Well, Julian might surgical in response here. Yep. Takes the Lotus Petal.
Oh my god. Takes the Lotus Petal. That's insane. So he just bought himself another turn.
Yep, strips the one out of Brett's hand.
Julian's surgicals have been masterful this whole match. So Brett's play, I mean, to avoid this, he could have played the Lotus Petal first, right?
Yep.
Like instead of just drawing with top, he could have gone Lotus Petal and then activate top, or even Lotus Petal sneak attack and then activate top.
Yes, he definitely had a better way to sequence this to play around surgical.
To be fair, I knew he had the surgical in hand, and I didn't see that line coming. That was great. And there's no way that Julian could have known about the Lotus Petal either. But it was like a potential possible 5th mana source to go sneak attack activate, so...
Well, you say no way. You could have the stream up in, the other window.
Come on. Yeah, Julian puts this whole thing together just so that he can ghost his own his own mediocre league.
Hey man, some of these contestants, I wouldn't put it past. No, I'm kidding.
I would. I would very much so put it past them. And I am.
I was just about to say, now watch Julian draw Thoughtseize here, and then he does.
That's so good. That's so good. And now Brett, I mean, he's got a top spin looking towards...
Yeah, he does get to see 4 cards for Griselbrand or an Emrakul.
Right.
Julian is now at 15. He could technically survive by going to 17, but...
And he actually leaves a Deathrite Shaman back for that very purpose.
Well, he can also drain. He only has 1 black source.
Right. Brett draws redundant top. Not very exciting.
There's an Emrakul.
But Emrakul's not quite lethal. Poor Julian.
I'd insult him and ask, does Julian see the line? But of course he does.
Of course. Oh, and that's smart, getting rid of the Griselbrand, because then there's only going to be 7 creatures left in Brett's deck after the Emrakul shuffle. So the mathematical odds definitely on Brett's side. I have, however, seen Sneak and Show lose from this position or a similar position before. Definitely something that you can do.
Yeah, there's this guy that used to stream Tin Fins in Modern, and there were a lot of games where he'd attack with an Emrakul and then lose, 10 turns later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that. And that's all she wrote. Yeah. Well played, Julian. Well played, Brett. GG's for sure. Yeah, very entertaining match overall. Good start to the Legacy Mediocre League, or a bad start if you're banking on the mediocrity.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's mediocre in the sense that there's no pro